Hey guys, Bowserkins here for another video, and we've got a doozy of a patch here, or I should say a build for 9.2. PTR update for today, Tuesday, February 8th. Um, you may be able to tell from my voice, I'm a little bit downtrodden today. It's not necessarily the content of the build, it's the fact that they still have not released a release date for 9.2, or really just an end of season announcement for 9.2 either. It's starting to concern me and looks like it may get pushed into March at this point. Some people had a rather pessimistic opinion back in January that this wasn't going to be happening until March or even April. And it's looking like that was actually accurate. So, uh, pretty pretty unfortunate. But we're going to go over the bonuses here for some of the specs, and then some massive nerfs to some of the other ones. Some were warranted, some I didn't feel were warranted. They're going to be pretty obvious to you, I hope. Starting with the Unholy DK here, it grants the Death Knight the Harvest Time buff if the enemy dies while Soul Reaper is active before it explodes. This is a nice quality of life increase to Unholy and should help definitely in Mythic Plus, where it looked like all these extra Soul Reapers onto targets weren't going to matter a whole lot because things were dying too quickly in AoE packs. Now this will actually make a difference and hopefully get Unholy in a little bit better of a spot for Mythic Plus, so that Frost isn't just going to dumpster Unholy. Because one thing people don't understand, if you haven't been testing on the 9.2 PTR, you wouldn't know, I guess, all that much that Frost is really starting to take a lead over Unholy in the intermittent packs, like the usual pack size that you would see in a typical Mythic Plus. Frost has been doing really well in those situations, especially with the Breath of Sindragosa build. So it's cool to see Unholy get some love. And this doesn't buff their single target damage all that much, or really at all. So it's just a nice bonus to Unholy in Mythic Plus. All right, we've got the first major one here, guys. The four-piece bonus for Feral has been nerfed by 65%. The number breakdown on this: 700% attack power is what it was before. Now it's 320%. One caveat to this, though, is that it's now going to be affected by mastery. They've applied it to the the list of basically the list of spells affected by Mastery Razor Claws, but they have removed it from being affected by Tiger's Fury, which is a significant loss in the damage of Sickle of the Lion, the four-piece bonus that applies to bleed. So this, I mean, there's no way around it. If you are a feral druid, I am freaking sorry, dude, because this is tragic. Now, I will say Feral Druid's single target damage in 9.2 was definitely looking too high. And I thought that they addressed the uncapped damage insanity in Mythic Plus with Feral by applying a soft target cap on this bleed to make it 8 targets. People who may have seen my last video saw that detail, and I thought that did an okay job of addressing the issue. I felt like their damage was still a little too high, but 65% is brutal. And I heard Liquid Max say it one time before, when 9.2 first started coming out. He was talking about how Feral would only be meta given its kit if it just does more damage than everything else. It needs to be able to do more damage than everything else because there's nothing that Feral brings to the group comp that is unique that other people can't bring. You can get Stampeding Roar from other specs. Um, you can get Entangling Roots from the other specs. I mean, anything that Feral Druid brings to your group, you can get elsewhere, and then get something else in return, right? So the fact that it doesn't look like Feral's going to be doing the insane damage anymore is quite a blow to the spec. If you're interested in getting an idea of how bad this is or how good it is in very close detail, I would watch Cybear's stream. He's going to be on Twitch tomorrow, February 9th. And I'm sure he's going to be posting, um, I'm sure he's going to be going over 9.2 testing during his stream. So he'll be running keys, I'm sure of it, maybe doing some raid testing, I don't know. But as as the quintessential feral main in the community, I'm sure he'll be testing this out tomorrow. Another nerf here, Guardian damage done reduced by 32% on the 4-piece bonus, and the healing has been reduced by 25%. The healing in my experience and the keys that I've pugged and the content that I've ran with my Guardian Druid on the PTR, the healing of the tier set is fairly insignificant and not something to write home about. The fact that it's been nerfed by 25% is kind of like a meh. But the damage being reduced by 32% is pretty darn significant. For people who've watched my update to the 9.2 PTR that I posted a couple weeks ago, Architect's Aligner, which is the 4-piece bonus here for Guardian, typically accounts for 15 to 20% of your damage over the course of a dungeon. So it's very significant. And I knew that it was going to get nerfed. Because the Kyrian Druid nerf was more so a shot across Restoration Druid's bow than it was Guardian, although Guardian definitely would have preferred to be able to play Kyrian in 9.2, but I still thought that Guardian was going to be really strong in 9.2 because of this 4-piece bonus just providing so much value. But now that it's been nerfed by 32%, this is pretty rough. Now, there is one caveat to that. They write in the notes here, these nerfs are to compensate the fact that the bonus now scales with buffs and legendaries. So this 45%, this was your base attack power, and it didn't scale with bonuses. Now it's going to scale with the bonuses, and if you're running the legendary that increases your damage during Berserk, I think it's called Sleeper's Will or something like that, or not Sleeper's Will, it's Legacy of the Sleeper, I think is what it's called. If you're running that legendary, it should now scale to where while you're berserked with the legendary on, it'll increase the damage of Architect's Aligner by 25%. And in that situation where you have a warrior in your group providing you with extra attack power and you're running that legendary, you could, in some cases right here, even with the reduction as a buff, that may hold true. That may hold true with the situation, the scenario that I just painted. However, Legacy of the Sleeper is not a meta pick for legendaries. You give up a ton of defense in Mythic Plus, especially when you are running that legendary, and it's probably not going to be worth for higher keys where you actually just need to survive. So it's very unlikely that people are going to play that legendary, but I'm certainly welcome to be wrong because I want to do big damn, but I also don't want to kill myself. So this is a heartbreaker for someone like me who plays a lot of Guardian Druid. All right, Frost Mage here. Frozen Orb damage reduced by 8%. Not good there for AoE. For single target, this is less significant, but, anything hurts. And for people who don't know what things are looking like in the 9.2 PTR, I laugh because it's kind of the same way right now. Frost Mage has been dominating. Not only the range DPS specs, but just all specs. Frost Mage has just been S tier, S plus tier. They've been out of their minds. And I knew that they were going to catch a nerf before the PTR was over, unless Blizzard was like just being ridiculous about it. Because they usually always tend to leave at least one mage spec OP before they go into the actual lives. But I mean, Frost was beyond the, it was beyond the margins. Frost is just way stronger. Excuse me, I had a cough there. But the damage difference is one thing. The fact that they're nerfing cooldown reduction not only nerfs their damage, but it also nerfs the fun of the spec. I'm not saying that Frost is going to be unfun after these changes, but when look at this. The Blizzard damage reduced by 5%, and the cooldown reduction Blizzard offers to your Frozen Orb has been reduced. I think it's from 0.5 seconds to 0.3 seconds. Look here real quick. Yeah, 0.5 to 0.3. So that's a chunk, right? And the fewer Frozen Orbs, the worse it is. And of course, that affects legendary choices as well. So just not a very fun nerf. I would have liked to just see flat damage reductions instead of going after something cool like cooldown reduction, especially in a season like this where we just want to pump. You know? All right, for Monk, we got Bountiful Brew. Necrolord Rune Carving Power now extends the duration of Bone Dust Brew if it triggers while a target is currently afflicted by Bone Dust Brew. My understanding of this is that um, it's a buff to the Necrolord Rune Carving Power. I think this is in response to the fact they just nerfed it to where it doesn't crit and they needed to bring it in line. I mean, there was a pretty significant reduction in the effectiveness of Bone Dust Brew when you're talking about it having a 0% chance to crit all of a sudden. So extending the duration of it, I assume, would be a big benefit. Hopefully, this helps out Windwalker especially, because it looks like for Brewmaster and Mistweaver, they're not going to be running a lot of Necrolord unless your group comp needs it for Mythic Plus. And then we've got class set, the 2 piece for Discipline. Shadowmen's grant 2 extra seconds of Atonement. The duration of Manifested Twilight has been increased to 20 seconds from 10. That's a pretty big number. And Shadowmen no longer consumes all stacks of Manifested Twilight. If you're a discipline priest, sorry, let me know what you think of this one, because I don't play discipline priest. I don't even play with discipline priests, so I don't have a lot of experience. Obviously, I know everything that discipline priest does just from the number of times I've pugged with them, but I don't know the nuances of it. So, if you are a discipline priest, go ahead and let me know what you think of this one. Seems like a buff, pretty significant. There's also a change to the encounter for the Titan console with Hilbrand, who's a boss in Tazavesh. The way that it worked before, if you guys haven't done this boss before, is you'd have to channel the Titan console, and then it would give you like the pattern in the dungeon encounter that you'd have to like unlock the consoles. But this, it seemed like it was going to be impossible for pug groups without an add-on. Way worse than way worse than the Mists maze, right? Because the maze and Mists of Tyrannus Scythe is already bad enough without an add-on, and then you add pugs into it where you're not over comms. This is like at least twice as bad as that. So now they've changed it to where when you click on the Titan console, you don't have to channel it anymore. You can just move around, but only one player can get the buff that will unlock the code essentially. It seems like a quality of life improvement for the player who's assigned to the console, but if you're a pug without the add-on, this is still gonna suck. So my word of advice to you guys is, if you plan on pugging this in 9.2, definitely get the add-on 100%. All right. Also, looks like they had something going on with the shaman. I think this is just housekeeping here. This belt type changed from magic to none. Yeah, the bountiful brew thing here. I think that's it for these. There's also a housekeeping thing with Frost DK. This has been just cleaned up a little bit. I don't think this actually impacts the tier set whatsoever. Just one of those things where sometimes they'll post some updated information here. Also, I don't know if this is true for Tier of the Grand Upwelling. It's 450 is now the bonus increased healing, but I always believed that the 123 was a placeholder number, and I know this doesn't scale. It's a flat value, which of course to me indicates immediately that this will be really strong early on and then become less powerful as the tier goes along and people get better gear. And I have no reason to believe that that is incorrect. So I guess we'll just have to see. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. I'm pretty sure that's it for the changes, guys. Obviously, the three big ones here in this are, the huge the huge nerf to Feral Druid. The Guardian damage reduction is also pretty big, and then the change to Frost Mage, hopefully bringing it in line with some of the other specs. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like and subscribe as always. And this has been Bowserkins checking out the news, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.